Module 2, Chapter 2, CAD 134, Basic AutoCAD for Interior Design. Hi, Joe Cerrone. Today we're going to look at Chapter 2, Setting Up an Introduction to AutoCAD, Learning Objectives, being able to change the units from decimal to architectural, 3 basic commands, line, circle, and erase, methods of selecting objects, using zoom and pan, and then we've got some chapter exercises creating these different geometries. Alrighty, so as we take a look at the chapter 2, the textbook, setting up an intro to AutoCAD, same learning objectives. Units command sets up the type of units that you're drawing with. And AutoCAD will allow you to work with a number of different units. Decimal units are typically used for mechanical work. Architectural work is done with architectural units. And so if I say File, let's go to my main splash page here. We'll just start off. As you recall, here we are in AutoCAD 2023. Here's our main interface. It remembers our recent drawings. And if I want to start a new drawing, I can just say File, New. And I can choose one of these template files, and these have a DWT extension on them. The default is this AutoCAD template, and if I open that, I'm just going to get a blank screen with a grid on it. We like to use templates within the D2L course shell, and so we'll use a number of templates for this course. And so if we take a look at our D2L, we have AutoCAD templates that we will be using for the course, and we have a architectural template that we'll be using primarily. And so we have this B-size architectural template. We can download it and open it, and then we'll just ignore this reference here. And so I'm going to pan by pushing the middle wheel on my mouse, and this is sort of our border or our template. And as we talked about in the first chapter, we have a model tab and then a layout tab. And then if we take a look at the units, what we would do, make sure your menu bar is on, and so you can hide the menu bar. You can see it's disappeared here. You can show the menu bar. And then if we wanted to take a look at the units, there's a couple of ways that we can access that command. One way is to just type in units in the command prompt. And so you can type in all of the commands. And so on our architectural template, we have the architectural unit of measurement, and you can see these little boxes around here. And here's the one for the angle, and then here's a sample input for that. And so we can say OK, versus the drawing that I started with the template. You can see it's over here in a tab, and it's named just drawing 1. That's the default. If I went to format units on this one is in decimal. And if we take a look at the information from the textbook here, the units will allow us to set up different types of units for different types of drawings. And they go through and show us how to set those up. We want them set for architectural units because we will be measuring in feet and inches. And so when you describe the size of a room, it's not going to be in inches like 36 inches. It'll be 3 feet. And I mean, certainly you can if you want to, but most people will work with feet and inches for architectural design work. We can set up the precision. Okay, precision is how accurate the measurements will be recorded. 1/16 is just fine. And then for decimal degrees, we can leave the precision at 0. And so what they're talking about here is if I go into my drawing, like in my B size title block and I went to format units, we're in architectural units. You have decimal units that you could choose from, and then some of these other units. But essentially we'll be working with architectural units. And then here's our decimal degrees. Sometimes we'll work with like surveyor units when we do like a plat of survey or something like that. But for right now we leave it at decimal degrees and 0. So there's nothing to change. We're just explaining the units command. And you can also go through and you can also look at it in other areas within the CAD system. I thought it would be in the units there, but it's not. So the 3 easy commands to get started are the line command, and we'll create this little Z-shaped, the circle command, and we'll just create a circle with a 1-inch radius, in the erase command, which is pretty self-explanatory. So getting back to the draw command, we can invoke the draw command with the line command, and what they're doing is they're showing what it looks like on Windows and what it looks like on a Mac. And so this is the reflection of the command line prompt. And so as we work with this, I'll explain to you how this maps back to the software. And then we'll make this little Z here. And so as we create the line command, what we'll do is we'll go into AutoCAD. And then if I'm going to just work with a new drawing, I can just say File, New. I can use the AutoCAD template, which is just fine. If I want to turn on or off my grid, I can turn off the grid, turn on the grid. This one here is Snap, and so you can have grid and Snap on. And these are controlled, these icons here, by this triple bar here in customization. And if you click on the customization bar, what we want to do is pretty much turn everything on. And it'll give you these commands down here at the bottom. And as we progress through the course, we'll start to work on different things. And so if we wanted to change the units, I could go Format, Units, and set this for architectural, and then say OK. So we'll make this Z shape right here, and what it's explaining to us here is what we'll see in the command line. And you really don't need to worry too much about it. I'm just explaining it because there's a lot of text in here. And so if we say line, you'll see here's the command line, and what it does is it reflects back, and it says the first point. And what you can do is you can just move the mouse anywhere you want, click once, and then as I move the mouse you can see that I can draw a line this way, and then this way, and then this way. And then if I right click, I can hit enter to pick up the command. So as we draw, we can use the line command here, and then as I click and place the cursor, you can see that it's basically going out here and giving me things like the length of the line, showing me it's 7 3/8 of an inch long. If I bring it over here to the right, you can see it's getting bigger, 1 foot, 1 foot 2, etc. I'm going to hit escape. For right now, we just want to draw this Z shape, and so we'd say line, and then we just make a Z shape. You might notice these green lines that are tracking out, and that's called polar setting. And so if I right click on this and I look at my polar tracking setting, what that does is it gives me these green tracking lines. And we'll explain that as we go on with the course. Continuing. The circle command can be invoked from the draw command, and you'll notice that there's this little triangle underneath it. And so what that means is that there are different ways to draw circles. And so when we select the circle command, we have these different options, and we'll look at those as we go through, but for right now we're just going to create a circle with a 1-inch diameter, excuse me, a 1-inch radius. So a radius means it's from the middle to the side, and a diameter would be the entire width of the circle. Switching back to AutoCAD. And so here's our circle command, and if you hit these little down arrows, you can see you have center radius, center diameter, 2-point, 3-point, tangent, tangent radius. And if you hover long enough, meaning if you keep the mouse over there, it'll go to the help screen and give you an interactive help dialog box. And so if I say center radius and I click on that, and then I can come over here, it asks me, and what you want to do is read your command prompt, and so it's saying specify the center point. And so when I click here, that's the center point, and as I move the cursor, you can see the radius is increasing. And so I'm just going to set that radius as 1 foot. I'm going to click that and move that with a grip. And I'm checking on this, and as I look through the chapter, it's actually supposed to be 1 inch, and so this is a good example. And so 1 foot radius is 12 inches versus 1 inch. If I wanted to make a 1-inch circle, I can go here, center radius, and I can click here for the center point, and I can say 1, and then inch mark is the quotes. And so when we input coordinates in inches, we'll use that format. So that's a 1-inch radius, and if I turn the wheel on the mouse and click on that, and then I hover over a grip, it'll show me that that's 1 inch. And so as we create these different geometries, and I can hit escape to get off of that part. So here's our 1-inch radius and our Z shape. And then we can use the erase command to erase them. And so as we select things, what it will do is it'll tell us that it finds them, and it creates what's called a selection set. And so as you click on them, it says 1 found, 2 found, total, and then there's different methods for selecting the objects. One method is to just click on them. Another method is to drag a window, and there's different types of windows. We can either drag from point 1 to point 2, and that would be a selection window, and we could also drag from point 1 to point 2 from right to left, and that'll give us a different result called a crossing window. And so we'll look at creating these different selection sets, or being able to erase, essentially. So we basically draw these two shapes, and then we erase them. And so we'll go to the erase command, and so here's my eraser. I can just click on erase, and then if I click on the circle, you'll see that it says 1 object found, and it doesn't erase it right away. You actually have to hit the enter key or right mouse click and then select enter. And so I'm going to hit escape. I put a grip on that. If I say erase, and then if I go from top left to bottom right, that's what's called a selection window. And the way that this one works is that everything needs to be within the window for it to select it. And so if I go here and I say like this, blue window, it only selects this part to erase. I can right mouse click and erase that. I could repeat the erase command by saying repeat, or I could undo that, and then I can erase again, and this time I'm going to go from the bottom right, and you can see the window is green, and so with a green window it erases everything it touches. That's all there's to it. So we can erase these different objects, and it kind of adds them up as we erase them. And then here's our methods for selecting, as we were talking about, using a crossing window or a non-crossing window. It also talks about the lasso, and this is something they added a few years ago, and I really don't like it very much. Um, it's a way of selecting things, like a cowboy roping something. You know, he has a rope, and so it's a non-square shape to select the boundary. And so the lasso command, let's see if mine's on, if I wanted to erase. And then what they say is you have to click and then let go of the mouse to get a square window. And then if I click and hold it, my lasso is turned off. So let me turn on my lasso by going to options, and then I believe it's here under selection, allow press and drag. And you probably have this on in the default installation. And so again, I'll cancel this out and show you how to do that. So to go into the options to turn on the lasso or to turn it off, you right mouse click anywhere in the screen and you select options. And then you have these different tabs. And the tab we want to work with is the selection tab. And I'm going to allow the lasso to be on. I'll apply it and OK it. And so when I erase something with the lasso, if I click and drag, you can create this shape like that. And then if I wanted to disable my lasso, I can go back to the selection and uncheck it and apply it, OK it. So we're talking a little bit about the lasso here and how to invoke that. And then here's our selection. Okay, so when we select from point 1 to point 2, it's a blue window and everything within that window is selected. So erase, blue window, everything selected. Okay, and so you kind of use it to pick what not to select. And so I can just select that line right there. And then if I want to erase and I go this way, what it does is it selects everything it touches. So it doesn't have to be completely within the boundary of it. So the green window is called a crossing window, and this one's just called a selection window. Blue, everything needs to be inside. Green, it just needs to touch. You can remove objects from the selection set. And so the idea is you build selection sets to erase things with. And let's say you accidentally choose something not to erase. What you need to do is to hold the shift key while you click on it, and it'll remove it. And so if we come back here to our little Z and we want to erase it, and let's say I just click on them. I erased all 3 of these. And then to remove it, I'm holding the shift key, and when I shift click, it'll remove it, and you can see it's being removed from the selection set. Grips are these blue squares, and they're really great. They allow you to draw things really quickly and to kind of be able to move things around quickly by grabbing these little squares. And so what these squares allow you to do is to do things like stretch and move, or to reverse the selection, meaning you could click on it, have a blue square on it, and then erase, rather than go to the erase command and then select the object. And so as we work with grips, you can click on them, and to remove them you can hit the escape key. And so they don't really go too far into how to use grips here, they just tell you about them. And so as we look at what a grip is, that's a grip. And so you get these squares, and if you hover over the grips, they'll give you feedback, information about things. And if you click on a grip, it makes it hot, meaning it turns it red, and then it allows you to do things like stretch. And so here's the stretch mode for grips, and if I click on that grip, I can move it. And then I could also hit escape to clear those grips out. Zooming and panning is controlled mostly with the wheel of the mouse. Years ago, you click on it with the left mouse button and you would select the command, but most of your computers now have wheeled mouses because they're very efficient. And so when you turn the wheel on the mouse, it gets bigger or smaller, and when you push the wheel on the mouse, it's like using the pan command. And so we talk a little bit about that. And then if you double click the mouse wheel, it'll do what's called a zoom extents. And so let's try that. And so here we are in our AutoCAD drawing. If I turn the wheel on the mouse, it gets bigger, smaller. Double click it, and it zooms to everything that's within the drawing. If I push the wheel on the mouse, it's like panning. And you can get this command right here as well. Here's the pan command, or you can get it from pull down menus as well, like this, where you can say zoom, and if I wanted to, I could zoom a window. You can just type the Z command. That's a shortcut. And then here's an example of zooming. If I had a couple of circles and a couple of lines and I wanted to zoom in using a window, it'd be really pretty fundamental. And so here's one circle. If I wanted to put another circle in here, if I use my O snap, I could kind of hover over it and just draw a circle inside of it. And then if I wanted to draw a couple of lines here, and if you want, you can change the colors. And so, for example, if I wanted to draw with a blue line, I could draw with a blue line here. Maybe I want to draw like a rectangle. And then to zoom, I could say view, zoom, window, place a window on that. But it's really not necessary, because all you have to do is turn the wheel on the mouse and push the wheel. It's kind of like working with a video game. Alrighty. So in summary, we've looked at changing the decimal units from feet to inches. What we're using typically is we'll use these templates that are in D2L, and we'll use our B-size arc template by downloading that and opening it. And what that will do is give me my B-size architectural template. If I were to look at the units for that, I can say format units. It's in architectural units. We went through and we created lines and circles. We erased objects. We selected objects using green windows and blue windows, and then we held the shift key to remove objects from the selection set. And then we worked a little bit with grips. Grips are those blue squares that we use to stretch things with and get analysis information. And then we used the zoom and the pan command. That ends this video lecture.